Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint summer treats with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. So I did go into a little bit of detail with this particular one. Even though it's a simple design, I wanted to show you some advanced kind of blending techniques. However, you can definitely simplify this. And this is a painting you can do with kids too. You guys can design your own popsicles, ice cream treats, and decorate them. There are only two brushes used in this painting. This one is a blender brush. If you don't want to use the blender brush, you can just use a 3/4 flat brush that was only used in the background. And then the rest of the painting was with this number 4 round brush, and those are only brushes that you'll need for this. I am going to be using the Posca black paint pen for the lettering. If you don't have a black paint pen, you can just use a black Sharpie. There are 9 colors in this tutorial. You're welcome to change colors or simplify the palette. We have Quinacridone Magenta, Light Pink, Primary Yellow, Mars Black, Bright Aqua Green, Titanium White, Burnt Umber. We have Hooker's Green Hue Permanent and Primary Red. These are Liquitex Basics acrylics. You don't have to use this brand. You can use whatever colors you have available. There is a drawing portion for this. I'll be showing you how to draw the ice cream popsicle designs. I also have a traceable template that you can transfer to your canvas if you don't want to do the drawing portion. But if you are drawing with me, a T-square ruler is really helpful to get things kind of lined up and straight, and of course just a regular pencil. And that's it for materials. We're going to go ahead and get started. So place your 11 by 14 inch canvas in a horizontal direction, and we're going to paint the background first. So this background, it consists of only 2 colors, titanium white and bright aqua green. And so we're just going to use the very tip of this blender brush. This is actually an e.l.f. makeup brush. It's not exactly an artist paint brush, but it does a really good job at making this really pretty kind of smooth blended look. You can achieve this also with like a sponge or even a flat brush. You can just take your 2 colors and just kind of blend them together. I am basically just loading my brush in the white and then loading it into the blue and just painting in this kind of circular spiral direction and blending both colors gently on the canvas. So since I want my background to look kind of interesting, since there's not a lot going on in the background, I'm gonna do this thing where I'm not blending my colors all the way. I have like a variation of the white and the aqua, and it gives this kind of really interesting kind of swirly look. If you want to customize this painting, you can change the background color. Just kind of think ahead about the colors in the ice cream. We have a lot of pinks and reds, so it needs to be something that kind of contrasts that color. So there's going to be a lot of warm colors in the object, so think of a cool color. So green would be a really pretty color, potentially light purple. This painting could even look really good as like just a black background, so like a black canvas painting. So those are some things that you can think about. Or even gray. Gray would look pretty as well, something neutral. Or cream color, beige color. So when you have the entire canvas filled up, I want to make sure everything's covered. There's no water added to my brush. In fact, this brush holds a lot of water to it. So if I added water to the brush, it would really get messy and drip everywhere. So no water is needed for the brush in this step. You'll want to let this dry before going on to the next step. The next step includes drying the ice cream items. And so let it dry, come back, and you'll need your ruler for this step. So because there's 3 main objects in this painting, I want to kind of spread them apart so they're kind of taking up an equal amount of space. I'm going to divide my canvas into 3, so it's a 14-inch wide canvas. And this is actually not perfectly equal, but I did 4.5, 4.5, and then I did the remainder. So there's a little bit more space on the far right, but the watermelon kind of takes up a little bit more space, so that was okay. So 4.5, 4.5 for the lines, and just use your T-square to draw vertical lines. You can also just kind of estimate dividing into 3. It does not have to be perfectly even. So draw 2 very light vertical lines, and you have your sectioned, and you have 3 different sections. So you can draw each of your ice cream pieces in each 3 slots. I'm going to start at the far right with the watermelon. And I found that kind of sketching out the triangle first, and then use your ruler to really kind of like get your lines, your diagonal lines to be even. And so the corner at the top is not pointed, it's got a curved top, and then it kind of goes down, a little bit curved on the bottom, and there's a line to divide the green part of the watermelon, and there's like a little white part of the watermelon, and your little popsicle stick. So to kind of figure out the popsicle stick, you can find the center of that. So I line my ruler up right in the center, draw a vertical line, and then draw the popsicle line around that vertical line. And then next we can do our center popsicle. So this is more of a rectangular shape. It's got chocolate kind of on the top of it, and the corners are rounded. So what I can do is I can kind of sketch out what I want that to look like first. So it's rectangular, the corners are rounded, the top part goes at an arc. And after you kind of sketch, then you can take your ruler and line your lines up so they're perpendicular to the edges of the canvas, so they're nice and straight. So it's like an arc shape. And then you can figure out your center and draw your little popsicle stick. And then at the very top of this popsicle, we have chocolates. We can do this fun little kind of wavy line, and it goes a little bit higher than the height of the actual popsicle. And so we have that part. And then over on the left, we have our cup of ice cream. And so I can just start by drawing our bottom kind of cup shape. It's rounded at the bottom with 2 diagonal lines going outwards. We have this kind of rim on the cup that goes outwards just a little bit on the left and the right, but it still curves down. And then we can start sketching our ice cream. So it's like this kind of curvy shape, and each one kind of goes on top of the other and gets smaller and smaller until it goes all the way to the top to kind of like a point. And if you want, you can draw your, like if you're going to do fruit on the ice cream, I did a little strawberry over here, but I'm going to end up just painting more fruit pieces in later. But if you want to, you can kind of design your ice cream and what you want that to look like. I will say you don't want to draw too many details with the pencil first. It should just be the basic composition of the painting just to get us started. Too many drawing lines might end up being kind of messy later on when we paint this. I'm actually going to adjust my watermelon piece so that it is a little bit more in line with the other 2 ice cream pieces. So I'm actually going to bring this up just a little bit so it's shorter, and the bottom of the popsicle stick lines up with the popsicle stick and the bottom of the ice cream on the left. So there's my bottom green piece and that. So that's why we want to draw very light, because erasing shouldn't cause that much of a mess with the painting to where it just doesn't erase. Oh, we can always paint over eraser marks if we don't want to see those. We are going to start painting, and it really doesn't matter which ice cream you paint first. I'm just going to start on the far right and work my way to the left. And so the watermelon, the colors in this one are Quinacridone Magenta, Primary Red, Titanium White. You'll also need the Hooker's Green Hue and Mars Black, but I'm not going to load those colors on my palette yet because I don't need those yet, and I don't want the paint to dry out by the time I need them. We're going to be using the number 4 round brush for the remainder of the painting, and I'm going to start at the top. So our watermelon is darker at the top, and it's going to gradually get lighter towards the bottom as we hit the green part of it. So let's double load our brush in Primary Red and Quinacridone Magenta. You're going to get this really pretty kind of magenta red color. And I'm just taking both of those colors and just kind of letting them blend together, defining the top. So I'm just kind of outlining. So I outlined the edges of it, and I'm taking my brush and painting in this vertical paint strokes, but kind of going diagonal as well. I want this to be more of this kind of blended, sort of swirly texture. So as I approach the middle, I loaded my brush in some titanium white because I want my color to start getting lighter. So the white is going to blend with your magenta and red. It's going to allow it to get lighter. But then also my paint strokes are going in this kind of swirly circular direction. And that's going to give me that sort of swirly look in the watermelon to help me blend the colors, but gives it this really fun texture in the paint strokes. You just want to make sure that everything's covered. We're not going to really go back over this with a second coat of paint, so this is it. I'm going to swirl some more of the darker color in there and blend. Pretty much want it to be nice and dark at the top and then much lighter towards the bottom. Make sure your edges are nice and defined. We will do a little bit of outlining with this to help with the edges. I'm going to take some of my darker color and drag some of that down, and then do some of that kind of swirly texture stuff towards the top. Blend this kind of transition area where it goes from dark to light. Something that's handy is having like a soft rag or paper towel on hand. And so you saw me just wipe my brush. Sometimes when we keep loading our brush, it gets kind of overloaded and then it just doesn't do what we want it to do. But wiping it off instead of rinsing it kind of helps that. And so what I did just now was take a little bit more white and kind of outline the far left part of the watermelon, and then I'm going to go back kind of towards the bottom and kind of make this area down here white, although it is blending too much and it's more of a light pink, but we can always kind of go back over that when it dries to make it lighter. That's the white part of the watermelon. Next, let's load our paint palette with Hooker's Green Hue Permanent. And I decided not even to rinse the brush for this. If a little bit of the red mixes with the green, that's actually okay. So I am going to paint the bottom part green. You want to make your paint strokes go in that curved direction of that shape. We'll do a little bit of blending and shading in this as well, but for now, just solid green. Before this dries, we're going to blend a little bit of black into the green area at the very bottom. So without rinsing your brush, add just a little bit of black to the very end of your round brush. And at the very bottom of that, just kind of outline it, but then take that black and blend it in just a little bit with the green. If it's not blending, you can always load your brush back into more of the green and then blend that a little bit more. So you have a very dark green edge to the bottom of the watermelon. We're going to paint the popsicle stick next, and this is the color Burnt Umber. So let's make this into more of a light brown color. So take the brown and mix a whole bunch of white into it, and actually grab a little bit of your primary red to kind of, this will warm the brown up just a little bit by adding red to it. So it should be kind of a light to medium brown. If it's too dark, you added too much brown to it, so you're going to need to add more white into it. And actually, I'm going to take some of this and add a whole bunch more white to it, so it's more of a lighter color. And I'm just going to outline the shape and then fill it in with vertical paint strokes. Then I'm going to grab just the brown, so I have a darker color here. And at the top, I want to kind of drag some of this darker color right at the top, so it's a little bit shadowy at the top. And then I'm going to actually grab a little bit of the black, kind of redo this part right here, just make sure that part is overlapping. And I'm going to rinse and actually do a little bit of highlighting on the green part of the watermelon. So rinse, dry, and I know my palette's not completely visible right there, but I have titanium white and green that I have on my brush. So it's a very light green. And I'm just going to blend a little bit of this light color on the left side and just kind of bring it in the middle a little bit. So that gives it a little bit of highlighting. And then rinse and grab a teeny bit of black. I'm going to do a little bit of shadowing on the popsicle stick. So on the far right edge of the popsicle stick, I didn't outline the entire thing, just the far right and then on the bottom curve. So that gives it more of a three-dimensional look to the stick. We are going to paint our middle popsicle. And this one, we're going to start with the color light pink. So take your 4-round brush and the light pink, and let's actually add some fresh titanium white to the palette as well. I'm going to double load in both the light pink and the white. So that should be enough to cover the background. If your background is actually darker, you may want to add a little bit more white to it to kind of help it give good coverage, but light pink for the most part is a pretty opaque color. So basically, this popsicle is going to have some three-dimensional kind of bars inside of it, but we're not going to do that yet. We're just going to do the first layer. So the first layer is really easy. It's just light pink and white kind of blended together, and I'm kind of scribbling my paint strokes to give it some texture and some color variation, but on the end of it, so you want to outline the edges, the inner edges of the shape that helps define the shape, and then on the inside, we can kind of make our paint strokes go kind of all different directions with the intent of like blending the pink and the white together and gives it a little bit of texture. And so I did not paint the area where that chocolate's going to be. I left that uncovered. And we have this nice and painted in, nice and solid. And again, we'll do that three-dimensional part later after this layer dries. Next, get your burnt umber color. I didn't even rinse my brush for this, so I have a little bit of that pink kind of blending in with it, but that's okay. Get some more burnt umber on our paint palette. And just paint your chocolate shape in. Same thing with this, you want to outline the edges to really define the shape of it, but then when you fill it in, you can kind of make your paint strokes. I guess in this case, my paint strokes are going kind of curved in the direction of that. And also I have a little bit of color variation because I still have white and pink on my paintbrush. We could do a little bit of highlighting on this before this dries, so kind of wipe your brush off and grab a little bit of titanium white on your brush, and just at the very, very top of that, kind of blend the white going in a curved direction. So the chocolate is actually a little bit lighter at the top and then darker towards the bottom. So if you want to add some shadowing, grab a little bit of black on your brush and re-outline the bottom edge of that with your black and kind of blend that in with the rest of the brown. Next, we'll do the popsicle colors. So rinse the brush and you want to just get your brown, and I'll do a little bit of the pink color to kind of warm it up, and our titanium white. It does not have to be the exact same shade as the other popsicle stick. You can change that slightly if you want. So same thing, just outline your shape, fill it in with vertical paint strokes. We'll do a little bit of that darker brown color towards the top, so it's a little bit shadowy at the very top part of the popsicle. And then we'll also do our little bit of black outlining on the sides. That's it for the middle one for now. We want to let that layer dry before we add more detail to it. And same with the watermelon. We're waiting for that to dry before we add the seeds. And so I'm going to move along to the left ice cream piece and do the cone cup piece next. And so we want to rinse the brush all the way and create a light brown color. So white, a little bit of brown, a little bit of the pink to kind of warm it. And if you want to add just a teeny bit of primary red into it, you can. I didn't add primary red to mine, just pink, white, and a little bit of brown. And then for the cup, you want to just take your round brush and kind of outline the edges of the cup. And then your paint stroke should be going in kind of the curved direction to give your cup a little bit of form. And then I did a little bit more brown so I can get this to be slightly darker towards the top. And it's actually slightly lighter towards the bottom just for color variation. Maybe there's a little bit more shadowing at the top and just filling it in. So the edges, my paint strokes are going kind of diagonal in that shape, but in the middle they're going in a curved direction. And then we have the part of the ice cream cup that kind of sticks out at the top, kind of creates a rim at the top. So for that, so we want to do like a little bit darker brown at the top so that stands out, but it's still kind of that light brown color, but then a little bit more dark brown into it so that that piece is a little bit darker. Again, you want to do curved direction in your paint strokes. And then you want to, I'm going to outline the far left part with that darker color. I just kind of drag that in, let that kind of blend in the center so we have a little bit more darker shadowy on the left as well. I'm going to do the texture work on the cone. And so I'm going to add some titanium white to my palette. So if you do this and you notice the brown layer of the coat is just too wet, you can come back to this step and do it later. I'm going to rinse my 4-round brush and grab my white. So I'm going to do these kind of curved cross hatching lines. So starting at the upper left corner, do these curving diagonal lines, and we're going to make them go the opposite direction too. So it is blending a little bit with that first layer of paint. So this is what I was talking about. If it's too wet and it's not showing up, wait for that to dry and then go back and do this step. And then make your lines go the opposite direction. And this is going to give us that kind of waffle cone texture. I didn't do that for the top, but we could do like a little bit of highlighting at the top if we wanted to. Add some white on one side. And next we'll paint the ice cream in. So I chose green for my ice cream. You can choose a different color if you want it to be a different color. So I'm just going to use the Hooker's Green Hue. I'm going to grab the green and add a little bit of white to it so I have a lighter green. But I'm still going to create some variations in this green. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and you want to make your paint strokes go in that direction of this shape. So we have this kind of swirled shape at the bottom, and I did the light, but I did a little bit of dark towards the bottom to create color variation. When you do your next layer, you want to change that color. So this time I made it darker so that it would stand out from the bottom piece. And then layer number 3, without rinsing my brush, I grabbed white. So this is going to be lighter. It's going to stand out from the other piece. So you're just creating different variations of your color. This, in this case, different variations of the Hooker's Green Hue. At the very top, one's going to be darker. And so that gives us that swirled ice cream look. And if we want, we can go back and kind of blend more colors into these. However, we don't want to over blend it because we still want those different sections to kind of stand out from each other. So taking that white, maybe adding some lighter color into maybe some of the darker areas, but still not trying to lose my shape. And then even if we want to take some of our dark and add maybe a little bit of dark down here, but again, not trying to over blend it. We could add our fruits onto this ice cream, and we can do that before our green dries. We're not going to do sprinkles until after the green dries. So I'm going to rinse the brush and do primary red. If it ends up grabbing some of that Quinacridone Magenta, that's okay. So we have a little strawberry over here in the left, strawberry pistachio ice cream, strawberry lime ice cream. We could change the flavors, change colors, add different kinds of fruits to it. You can be as creative as possible. You don't have to make yours look exactly like mine. And a little strawberry top, green piece at the top. And I'll add more fruits to this later. Next, let's do our watermelon seeds. So this should be well dry by now. And so these little seeds are just pure Mars Black, and it's a very small kind of teardrop shape. It's rounded at the bottom and pointed at the top. So just use your round brush to kind of outline the shape and then fill it in solid. So you just do little seeds all pointing upwards on our watermelon. We will go back and highlight these seeds later, but we need to let that black dry before we can do that. Let's also add sprinkles to our middle ice cream piece. I'm going to rinse and get some fresh titanium white onto my palette, and I'm going to use my round brush to paint little dots or little circles all over the chocolate area. You can even make some of your sprinkles look like they're going off the edge of it, so they don't all have to be right in the middle. They could be on the very edge. Gives that a little bit more shape to those sprinkles. If you wanted these to be a different color, you can have them all be white first and then go back over the white after it dries. I'm going to add little seeds to my strawberry with this white as well. So these are just little tiny dash marks that are going vertical. If you want to go more realistic with your strawberry, you can. I just did this very, very basic strawberry. And then taking that green and kind of going over that very bottom part of the strawberry to kind of make it look like it's pushed into the ice cream a bit more. I'm going to do another strawberry with my red color over here on the left. Then I'm going to rinse and do a little bit of outline work on the lower left part of the ice cream cup. So adding just Mars Black on the very, very end of the brush and just very loosely kind of outlining the edge and the bottom of the ice cream cup. And same thing over here at the top part. I'll outline the entire bottom part of that curved kind of rim of the piece. And then a little bit at the top. Actually, I'm going to grab more green and kind of make this part a little bit darker, so it's a little bit shadowy at the bottom part of that ice cream. We are next going to focus on our center popsicle piece, and I'm going to show you how to do the two kind of three-dimensional bars in the center of that popsicle. I actually just kind of fixed that bottom edge real quick. But I recommend, so I found it easy to draw these out with a pencil first, because this is a little bit of a challenge to make this look like it's three-dimensional and this part of our popsicle is kind of dipping inwards. So I just drew these two rectangular pieces side by side, and they go all the way up and kind of disappear under our chocolate area. So when you draw those two pieces in, it's going to be a lot easier to paint in this next step. So draw those in with a pencil, and then grab your number 4 round brush, and let's take our light pink color and add primary red into it. So now we have a dark pink color, and you want to just take your dark pink color and kind of fill in that rectangular shape. So I started on the shape on the left. So it kind of outlined that with our dark color, but in the middle of that, we have a little bit more lighter pink. So it's kind of darker on the edges and lighter in the center. So when you add that kind of streak of light right in the middle of that, it gives you that color variation. But because it's dark, it's going to make it kind of look like that part is dipping inwards. And then let's take that color that's on our brush and let's just kind of add some of this color around here to the rest of the popsicle. So I just kind of loosely added that color around that bottom curved corner of that, but without covering it completely, because our under layer is that light pink. We still want to have a lot of that light pink still showing. I'm going to do the next rectangular area, same thing. So taking our darker pink color. So this, again, this is light pink mixed with a little bit of primary red, kind of outline that shape, grab our lighter color, and then take that and kind of paint. Make sure your paint strokes are going in a vertical direction. That gives you that color variation in there. So there's some lighter areas. Because it's dark, that's making that look like it's kind of dipping downwards in that shape. Gives us that popsicle effect. And you can already see that it's starting to look three-dimensional. I'm going to add some titanium white to my palette. I need some more color variation in this. So I'm going to grab some of my white, and I'm going to take this. So this middle part should be light. I'm taking that, outlining around those two rectangular shapes. I'm taking that white and I'm actually making this middle part a little bit lighter with light pink and white kind of blending together. Going around that shape. Then around on the far right edge of that. So this is still light pink and white, kind of going back over all this with kind of a second coat of paint. So inside our rectangles, it's dark. On the outside of the rectangles, it's light. I'm going to add a little bit more dark here. So getting my Quinacridone Magenta actually, and the very bottom of these rectangular shapes, I'm actually adding this darker color. so that it's more shadowy at the very, very bottom. So I outlined that bottom and whoops, I did the center part again and I ended up making that too dark. So adding white and now I'm lightening it up a little bit. But you want to make sure that bottom part on the inside is dark, and you can go back and kind of redo the outer edges of it with lighter color. You just don't want to overdo it because you don't want to end up having everything kind of blur together and be the same color. There should be some very distinct lights and darks in this. And then if we need to, we can go and redo the bottom edge of our chocolate. Next, we're going to do some more detail work with the ice cream on the left. So I'm going to add a cherry. And again, feel free to add whatever decorations you want. Different kinds of fruits. So I'm going to do primary red, titanium white. So the white is important because we're working on the background. So adding white to this cherry is going to make that red stand out so it's brighter. So titanium white and the primary red on the brush. I'm going to do like a little piece of the circle or a bigger piece of the circle, but it's kind of covered by the top part of the ice cream. And then we can rinse and do either black or brown for the stem. I'm going to do brown for the stem. It's like a little curved line, a little notch. And we can add a little white highlight to the cherry as well. The titanium white, a little curve at the top. And then we can add sprinkles to the ice cream. So we can use titanium white and do like little dots. If we want to, we can make these different colored sprinkles because it's kind of on a lighter color background. They don't really show up, but if we did maybe chocolate sprinkles, they would show up a little bit better. So I'm doing them mostly towards the top. I'm going to go back over with brown and see if darkening kind of helps. Adding a little dot of brown on some of the white dots. And then I'm going to go back and highlight the watermelon seeds. So this really adds a nice touch to these. So just taking the titanium white and doing like a little, some of them you can just do like little 2 dots on the far left or just like a little curve on the far left. I'm going to add like a little highlight right here, the left kind of corner area of that. And at the very top kind of curve, this popsicle can get a slight highlight on the bottom left corner. We can even take the white and kind of outline the left side of the popsicle sticks. Next, I'm going to show you how to do the shadows in this. So this is pretty much watercolor style. So I want to take my black and I want to water it down to a watercolor consistency. This should not be very dark. So adding a lot of water to this black is going to make it thin, translucent, enough to kind of give it a shadow effect. So I'm going to take my watercolor black and with the round brush and just doing these loose paint strokes so our shadow is kind of going diagonally towards the right. And again, just very loose left and right paint strokes to create your shadow under each of the objects. So with the ice cream cup, our shadow is actually a little bit kind of larger, so it's forming the shape of that. And then I just take those shadows to the bottom edge of the canvas and just kind of, again, left and right paint strokes, but it's really kind of this abstract blob, enough to create the shadow effect. The next thing we're going to do is paint the fruit slices in this painting. So I have a lime, wedge, a couple lemons, an orange. So let's start with the lime, and we want to kind of make room for our lettering. We know Hello Summer is going to be right in the center, so we want to do our slices so they're kind of out of the way. And this is the number 4 round brush in Hooker's Green Hue, and all I'm doing is just painting this arc line for the end of the lime wedge. Grab your white and mix white and green together to get a light green. And you just want to fill in that half circle shape with your light green. If you want, you can even get a teeny bit of yellow on your palette, since we're going to be using yellow anyway for the lemon, and make it more of like a yellow green color, but I'm just going to use the green for this. So the interior of that is white and green, so that shows up lighter. It's going to be too wet to paint the white kind of inside part of the lime. You can try it depending on, so this part right here, there's a white line between the dark and the other part of the fruit. I'm going to do that, but it's just mixing with that color anyway, so we can kind of just wait for that to dry before detailing that up a bit more. I'm actually going to skip ahead here and get my lettering in before I add the rest of the fruit slices. I just really want to get the placement of the words. So I always say this with when I add lettering to paintings is you can change this to whatever you want it to say. I'm going to have it say hello summer. And so what I usually do is I usually like type into Google font, the word font, and then the quote. So I put font hello summer, and it brings up like different styles of lettering, and I just kind of pick which one I like and maybe just kind of change it to different things, because I'm not really an expert at lettering, but that kind of helps me get that idea in. So I did the hello part in kind of this cursive lettering, and you want to draw in pencil first, just in case you want to erase and change the placement of your lettering. There's a little heart under the hello, and it's super helpful to just get your ruler and kind of draw these horizontal lines in the area that you want, so you kind of get the height of your lettering in, and then you can kind of draw it in. Again, highly recommend you draw lightly with this so that in the end we can erase. So summer ended up being a little bit too far to the left, so I'm actually going to change that again to push it over to be more center. But before I do that, so for the letter, actual painting the lettering in, I'm using the Posca black paint pen. It's really easy, just go back over your lettering with that. You can also do the same thing with the black Sharpie, or if you want to use a really small round brush and do black paint for painting your letters. So I do it with a thin line first, and then I go back over and make some of my lines thicker in some areas. Give it more of that artistic look. So the L's a little bit thicker on the far part of the L, and then some thicker parts of the O as well. Gives it that variation. And then I'll redo my summer. So the summer font is more of these capital letters. They're kind of close together. And then go back over that with my paint pen. And then any pencil lines that are showing after we outline with the paint pen should erase as long as you drew lightly with the pencil. So the guidelines will erase as well. And then the next things we're going to do our paint the other fruit slices and detail our lime up. So we were trying to add white to the edge, and then we just do these little diagonal lines in there for the other detail part of the lime. So this is the first time we're having yellow on our palette. So this is primary yellow. And so with the yellow, the yellow turns very translucent on the canvas. So if you add white to your yellow, that will lighten it up. Of course, we have to add white to it anyway. So this middle part is lighter and our outer part is darker, but I'm going to do the half circle shape first and make that light, kind of maybe just do the outer part darker. But since it's such a close color, we may have to just let this dry completely and then go back with more yellow. We can even add a teeny bit of red to our yellow, and that's how we can make the outer part darker so it shows up better. This little piece is going to be a full circle. It gives it some design variation. So you can have fun with this step, add different slices in different areas. You can do different fruits throughout your canvas. So again, white and yellow to get that lighter color. I decided to touch up the ice cream really quick while these fruit slices are drying. So taking that white and just on the left part, kind of highlighting that far left part of the ice cream. Well, maybe a little bit on the right too. Gives it some pretty highlights in there. It's a touch up that you don't have to do, or if you want to do that, you can. I'm going to do the darker part of my lemon slices here. So actually I'm going to take this yellow and add just a touch of primary red into it. It's going to give your yellow just a slight kind of orangish hue to it, but it's enough to make that darker part of our lemon stand out from the lighter part. So I'm going to do that to that half circle part and the full circle. So just outline the entire circle with that kind of really, really light orange color. So that we can rinse and grab titanium white on our palette. This may not show up, especially if it's still wet. So I'm going to do the white part of the lemon and the little lines. So with titanium white on the 4 round brush, I'm going to do, so this part right here is white. Again, it's not showing up too much, like we can tell, but we could also go back over that with a second coat of paint later. And then this entire inner part of the circle is white. So titanium white is what I'm loading on my brush. And then we have lines. So this one, we can do like the little wagon wheel lines in the center. Also not showing up super bright, and we can go back over that later with another coat of white paint. If you have a white paint pen, that actually would work nicely for this step. You can go back and do those lines with the white Posca paint pen. This one definitely isn't showing up as much. And then if we want to do an orange slice, you can make orange on your palette. You can mix your red with your yellow. So primary red, primary yellow. You'll need just a tad bit more yellow than the red to make that orange color. So you have your orange, and you can do that same thing with the peel part. Do your lighter color. So add white into your orange to make a light orange color in the center. And then you can do that same technique that you did with the other slices. You can do your white inner outline, and then you can wait for it to dry and do your white lines. And that is it. This is the conclusion of how to paint summer treats. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.